everybody, it's Bolla again. Today we're going to talk about once you've chosen to move to Panama, whether it is for a holiday, to come live here forever or to come retire here, there's a few things that you need to consider in preparation for your trip. It's very important to first Spanish. Spanish is the most important thing for you to consider before you take your trip. If you can speak Spanish, no problem. Get on a plane, get down here, it's awesome. If you have never spoken Spanish before, please bear in mind that Spanish is the primary language of Panama and only a few people can speak English. Most of the natives, most of the people in the rural areas do not speak English at all. Therefore, conversations with them go like this. English? No. The end. It's very important, so start immediately. There are a few methods to use. For South Africans, I know there are Spanish classes in Joburg and in Bloemfontein. Get a hold of those people. If it's too far for you or you're not able to attend those classes, go on YouTube. There's a channel called Culture Alley. I used that one. It's awesome. It taught us a lot of Spanish. We can't speak it fluently yet, but we're getting there. I will also link Culture Alley below, so don't be upset if you don't remember the name. The second thing is, if you're only planning to come for a holiday, that's not a problem, but contacts. Communicate with as many people as you can from Panama, people who live here in different areas, all the areas you want to go. If you want to go to Boca del Toro, make sure you talk to people who actually live there. Find out all the great places to see, places that you have to visit, because even though tours will take you to the best places, there are some off the beaten track places that only the locals know about, and the last thing you want is to come visit Panama, go back home, and then hear about places that you should have gone but you weren't. So talk to people from all the areas in Panama that you want to go visit. Also very important, try and find people. There's a lot of expats in Panama. Try and find people that are from the same country as you are. If you're Canadian, try to speak to people from Canada. If you're American, try to speak to people from America, because then your comparisons will be the most to the reality as possible. If you are from Canada, for instance, and you speak to a South African, our priorities are different, our comparison is different, because Canada and South Africa are two completely different places. So make sure when you try and get contacts that are from either your home country or Panamanian. Panamanian, you're gonna have to be able to speak Spanish though to make contacts with Panamanians. Then the second thing is, if you want to come and retire in Panama, very important, in preparation you need to contact lawyers in Panama and at your home town or in the country you live in, to make sure that you can transfer your retirement to Panama. The last thing you want is to show up in Panama, you've moved here now, you're retiring here, and then you cannot get access to your funds or your retirement funds. So make sure, find out everything about what the cost will be to transfer your retirement here, whether you can still collect it from your home country, just get the money in Panama, or whether you have to transfer it to Panama. If you need some information about that, if you want me to connect you with lawyers that specialize in that, you can just leave me a comment or send me an email, and then I will get back to you with the relevant information and people that you can contact to find out the details. If, however, you are planning to immigrate to Panama, then the first thing that you need to do in preparation is go onto the government's website and look on the list of countries that qualify for the Friendly Nations visa. I know South Africa's on that list. That's how we immigrated here, through the Friendly Nations visa. That's the first thing. If your name is not on that list, then make sure to get a hold of a lawyer in Panama that can assist you with the process that you will need to immigrate to Panama. If your name is on that list, it means it's way easier for you. All you need to get access to Panama is a passport. You will get your visa on arrival at the airport, and then you can stay for 6 months as a tourist. If you're coming to start applying for your permanent residency, then however you need to get in contact with a lawyer. I have a list of awesome lawyers that I can recommend, so if you want some information like that, drop me a comment or send me an email and I will get back to you with the list and the recommendations that I have. Contact a lawyer, start the process from where you are. We were in South Africa. We sent through all the documentations that we need. We needed to use about 2 weeks with the lawyers before we actually arrived, and that expedites your process immensely, which then means that once you're here, it's easier and quicker and faster and less cost, more cost effective to get your permanent residency. What we need from South Africa to apply for permanent residency, there's two processes. The one thing is you need to have a Panamanian bank account. There's a whole process involved in that. We'll get to that in a few minutes. The second thing is there are different documentations that you need to collect while you're still in South Africa. The first stop that you make, and I'm sure this will apply to any friendly nations visa holder, so just change it up to the country that you live in. But the first things you need is you're going to have to go to a Department of Home Affairs and get 2 forms of identification. The one would obviously be your passport. The second one can be any local form of identification, either a driver's license or, as we have in South Africa, an identification card, smart card. You need both of them. Then you also need to get an underbridge birth certificate for every person that is traveling and planning to permanently reside in Panama. You also need to have a marriage certificate if you are married, which is also underbridged, so a normal marriage certificate and an underbridged marriage certificate. Then the other thing that you will also need from them is the passports, the underbridged birth certificates, marriage certificates. The other form that you will need, but that you won't get from Home Affairs or the Department of Home Affairs, is the police clearance certificate that you will apply for at your local police station. Any police station can do an application. However, all of them send it through to the department that handles the police clearances, which is in Pretoria in South Africa. The biggest mistake that people make is that they apply for the police clearance certificate at their local police station and then wait for them to send the forms to Pretoria, for Pretoria to work with the forms and issue the certificate, and then for it to be sent back to that police station. This is where the biggest delay comes in, and this is where your biggest chance for losing your certificate comes in, because it gets lost in the mail. You are allowed to apply for the police clearance certificate and ask them for the forms so that you can either personally hand them in Pretoria or have them couriered there. There's 2 courier companies that you can use, either DHL or Postnet. What we did, but then we lived in Kroonstad, that's only 2 hours away, is we actually took a road trip the first day to hand them in, and then once we got the SMS verification that it was already and ready for us to be collected, we then took a second road trip and went to fetch it. And this happens within 14 days. So once you hand in your police clearances at the department in Pretoria, 14 days later you have your certificate. I would also recommend doing this if you are close enough to be able to do this, because if there's a problem on your certificate, they can reissue it right there. If you send it through the post, through the police station, and it comes back and there's a problem on your certificate and it needs to be reprinted, they have to reapply for the certificate, which means you start the whole process from the beginning. Bear in mind, my husband and I both applied, and both of us needed reprints on our certificate. They made my certificate on my maiden name, which had to be on my married surname, and my husband's name they spelled incorrectly, so it doesn't match your documents and they won't accept it in Panama, so they also had to reprint his. So the fact that we were there really assisted us in handling that matter as efficiently as possible. Now, if you do have your police clearance certificate and you've already been to Home Affairs, now bear in mind that you need to start these processes as soon as possible because it's lengthy. The underbreach birth certificates can be up to 9 weeks before you get them back. And then the marriage certificate, the normal one they print immediately, the underbreach marriage certificate also can be up to 6 weeks before you get that back. So make sure that you give yourself enough time to be able to request all these documents and get them before you actually fly to Panama. Once you've received all those documents, you need to apostilize them. So what happens is you go to the Department of International Relations and Cooperation in Pretoria. It's quite an easy process. It's the most efficient government department that I've ever visited. You hand in your documents today up until 1 o'clock. They close at 1 o'clock every day. And then tomorrow morning you can come fetch them. If you have more than 5 documents per person, it takes 3 days before you can go fetch them. So see what is your situation. If you are more in a time crunch, take someone else with you, because each person can hand in 5 documents on that same day and fetch them the next day. So then you can hand in 5 and the other person that you take with can handle the other 5. But for a couple, like my husband and I, 5 documents are sufficient, because it's the 2 police clearances certificates, it is the 2 birth certificates that are underbreached, and the marriage certificate. That's perfectly fine for one person. Then, once you've collected that, you are ready to fly to Panama in terms of your documents that is needed for your immigration. Now, in terms of the bank account, there are a few things that the banks in Panama need for you to open up a bank account here. The first thing is, for the person that would be the account holder, they need a tax clearance certificate and an income tax statement. You also need a reference letter from your bank, from your home country, 2 banks, preferably 2 different banks, but they are lenient on that. However, if you're from South Africa, please take note that when we started this process in January, my husband went to his 2 banks and got his reference letters, and it was beautiful reference letters stating how long he's banked there, his relationship with the bank, and all the information that they needed. However, it came to our attention that those bank reference letters are only valid for 30 days from date of issue. So we had to revisit the banks at the end of March, the week before we flew, to get new letters. And when we went there, they just said that they don't issue reference letters at all. And we had to struggle and fight and explain and plead to get the reference letters. So visit your bank, find out the process, find out who you can talk to, and demand the letters. Otherwise you will not be able to open up a bank account in Panama. The other thing that you need, except for the tax clearance certificate and the bank reference letter, is money. To apply for immigration, there is one of 2 things you can do as a married couple. You can either have one account for both people, which is a joint bank account. If that's the case, then you need a minimum of $8,000 in that account, a letter from the Panamanian bank stating that this is your balance for immigration purposes. However, if you want to have 2 separate accounts, each person has his own bank account, then you only need $5,000 per person in each account for the reference letters to immigration. That might seem difficult because now it's 10,000 instead of 8, but it is allowed for you to first deposit the first account, the $5,000, to get the bank reference letter, and then transfer that same $5,000 into the second account to get the second bank reference letter. However, please be aware that when you get your reference letter from the bank, they also issue you 2 checks per person, an $800 check and a $250 check that you hand in at immigration to pay for your application. So it can vary that was just the amount when we applied. But so make sure that if you do transfer the funds from the one account to the second, after you get your reference letter, make sure to split the balance between the 2 accounts so that those 2 checks does not bounce, because that will determine whether your application is approved or denied. Then The other thing is you have to build up contacts as well. Just as with the holiday visa, talk to everybody and anybody you can that live in Panama to determine the area where you want to live, to determine where you want to go, and make sure that you speak to people that's been here a while. When we came, I contacted everybody I could get a hold of, and I asked them how long they were here. People that were here for 2 years and more, I asked them way more questions than people that just arrived or arrived a month ago or 2 months ago. Again, make sure you speak to people that are from the same country you are. So if you're from South Africa, speak to South Africans, because then your comparison between Panama and South Africa would be 100% more unique. If you speak to Canadians, it won't be the same, because their experience of Canada versus Panama is completely different to what South Africans are and experiencing and what Panama is experiencing for them. The other thing is, in preparation, make sure that you do have a nest egg. You will be able, or you will have to be able to sustain yourself for 8 to 12 months. It's not as much money as you expect. You can get by with about $1,200 to $1,500 a month, and even cheaper if you're willing. So it's just for you to go through the process to get your permanent residency, to get a work permit, and then to be able to get any other work. If you are already sustainable without having to actually work, then that's not a problem for you. So if you have any other questions about preparations and things you need to look at before you start planning your trip, buying air tickets and whatever, you can contact me, you can email me, or leave a comment and I'll get back to you, and then I'll be able to answer all your questions. Bye guys!